From the theory that Nurse Joy is an evolved Chansey, to the belief that Team Rocket is trapped in purgatory for past crimes committed against Pokémon trainers, these are the lesser-known mysteries of the Pokémon world to help you finally fall asleep. Lavender Town wasn't haunted by spirits, it was built to make them. We all know Lavender Town, the music, the tower, the ghost of a Marowak. It's the beating heart of every Pokémon creepypasta ever written. But according to this theory, Lavender wasn't just a haunted town, it was a test site. And Team Rocket wasn't afraid of ghosts. They were trying to weaponize them. Let's start with what we know. In the original games, Team Rocket takes over Pokémon Tower, a sacred place where people come to mourn the dead. The common explanation is that they're poaching Cubone skulls for profit, but that only scratches the surface. Why risk an entire rocket squad to lock down a spiritual site for basic merchandise? Why pick a place surrounded by psychic disturbances and ghost-type energy? This theory suggests the skull poaching was a cover. Team Rocket wanted access to ghost energy. Specifically, they wanted to study the connection between spiritual phenomena and Pokémon evolution, or even possession. The ghost Marowak is key here. It's the first time the player encounters a true ghost, not a ghost type, but a spirit, one that can't be fought until it's recognized. That suggests a form of incorporeal energy invisible to conventional means. What if rocket scientists believed this energy could be harnessed, turned into fuel, transformation, or control? We know from Cinnabar Island and the Mewtwo project that Team Rocket was already knee-deep in dangerous experimentation. The Pokémon Mansion is filled with notes on failed hybridization and psychic breakdowns. Combine that with Lavender, and a pattern emerges. Cinnabar is where they played with bodies. Lavender is where they played with souls. And here's where it gets darker. Some speculate that certain ghost-type Pokémon are the results of these experiments. Think Yamask with its eerie human mask, or Banette, a possessed doll filled with hatred, or even Mimikyu, a Pokémon so cursed it kills those who see its true form. Could these be echoes of failed tests? Or worse, vessels, built to contain what came through? There's even a fan theory that Gengar is the shadow of a Clefable, born not through evolution, but separation. As if rocket researchers tried to split essence from form. If that experiment ever existed, Lavender would be the place to run it. The presence of Mr. Fuji, an ex-rocket scientist who now protects Pokémon Tower, only strengthens the theory. Maybe he wasn't just mourning Marowak. Maybe he was trying to undo the damage. So what if Lavender Town isn't the result of spiritual unrest, but the cause? What if Team Rocket turned a resting place into a research lab, and accidentally, or intentionally, opened a door that never fully closed? And what if the ghosts we see aren't just spirits of the dead, but experiments that escaped? How psychic types are a window into our own minds. Psychic types in Pokémon are known for their intellect, their mental powers, and their eerie calm. They bend spoons, levitate objects, and communicate without words. They're the embodiment of human intelligence evolved into superpower. But look a little closer, and something strange appears in their weaknesses. It's not just a game mechanic, it's a psychological map, one that looks suspiciously like a diagram of human fear. Let's start with the basics. Psychic types are weak to 3 things: bug, ghost, and dark. On the surface, that seems random. What do insects, spooks, and shadows have to do with mind control and telekinesis? But step outside the game for a moment and into your own head, and the logic gets sharper. Bugs are one of the most common human phobias. There's something primal about our fear of insects. Their twitchy legs, their unpredictable movement, their alien features. They're small, but they terrify. This fear isn't learned, it's inherited. Our ancestors feared what crawled, and so even the most enlightened psychic powerhouse can still be undone by a caterpie with an attitude. Ghosts? That's fear of death, the unknown, the beyond. No matter how much intelligence we gain, how many books we read or minds we probe, there's still the unanswerable. What happens after? Psychic types are defined by their control. Ghosts represent what they can't control, the unseeable, the ungraspable. A floating haunter doesn't just threaten a psychic, it destabilizes their entire framework. And then there's dark, not the literal absence of light, but what it represents: deception, cruelty, malice without reason. Psychic types are often portrayed as calm, rational beings. Dark types are chaos, trickery, the part of humanity we pretend we've evolved past. But it's still there, lurking. A reflection not of what we fear in the world, but what we fear in ourselves. So the weaknesses aren't random at all. They're a thematic statement, a subtle reminder that no matter how far the mind goes, it's still chained to the core of what it means to be human. Intelligence doesn't erase fear. In fact, it might amplify it. Psychic types also resist fighting and poison, two elements of primal threat. Brute force and biological decay, it's almost symbolic. The mind transcends muscle, intellect outwits toxins. But the moment the mind turns inward and starts reflecting on its own fears, it cracks. Even in the Pokédex, many psychic types are described as unstable, mysterious, or overwhelmed. Kadabra is said to have once been a boy whose psychic powers transformed him. Gothitelle sees the future and goes mute. Malamar hypnotizes people with patterns of light. These aren't just creatures of pure reason, they're carriers of mental fragility, emotional overload, or unchecked intellect. Their minds are their weapons and their weakness. In competitive play, psychic types were once dominant until dark types were introduced in Generation 2. It wasn't just a balance tweak, it was a philosophical one. The mind needed a mirror, something that could stare back and say, "You're not untouchable." Giratina, the banished guardian of balance. What if the devil of the Pokémon world wasn't evil at all, just misunderstood? Or worse, what if it was never a devil in the first place, but a silent savior we were never meant to see? In Sinnoh's creation myth, Giratina is the one cast out. Arceus, the original one, birthed Dialga to govern time, Palkia to command space, and Giratina to do what exactly? The Pokédex from Platinum offers a chilling clue. It was banished for its violence. It silently gazed upon the old world from the distortion world. The simplified version sounds like divine punishment. But what if this violence was something else? Something essential? Fans have long speculated that Giratina represents more than malevolence. In fact, the theory goes that Giratina embodies antimatter, the necessary counterforce to matter. Dialga rules time, Palkia rules space. And Giratina, the third element in this cosmic equation, rules the balance between them. A being of antimatter can't coexist peacefully in a matter-based universe. Contact is cataclysm. Thus, Giratina's violence isn't rage, it's physics. So why exile it? Because for the universe to function, matter and antimatter must be separated. Arceus didn't cast Giratina into a prison. It created a separate plane, the distortion world. Not a hell, but a safeguard. There, time flows strangely, and space bends unpredictably. It's the only place Giratina can exist without destroying everything it touches. This makes the distortion world Giratina's rightful domain, not a punishment, and its presence there isn't passive. Giratina watches, it waits, and when the universe itself is threatened, it acts. Consider Pokémon Platinum. Cyrus tries to erase reality by manipulating Dialga and Palkia. Who stops him? Not Arceus. It's Giratina who intervenes. It drags Cyrus into the distortion world, not to torture him, but to quarantine him, to protect both worlds from his nihilistic ambition. Then there's the legend of the cruel swordsman. In the Sinnoh folk tale, a man travels the region, cutting down Pokémon without reason, without remorse. He feels no guilt until, one night, a shadow descends upon him. It said the air grew cold, the stars blinked out, and the swordsman's blade shattered in his hand. The man vanished without a trace. Some claim he was swallowed by darkness itself. That shadow, many believe, was Giratina. Not evil, judicial, retributive. The violence of a cosmic enforcer, not a monster. A warning. There are forces in the world that will not let cruelty go unanswered. Dialga and Palkia can be summoned, controlled, even revered. Giratina cannot. It is beyond chains, beyond temples. It answers only to balance. It is the universe's immune response to existential threats, a surgeon's scalpel, not a warlord's sword. So perhaps Giratina didn't fall from grace. Perhaps it stepped into shadow willingly, taking on the most isolated role in creation. The keeper of cosmic equilibrium. A guardian feared by those it protects, unseen by the world it preserves, exiled not in disgrace but in solemn duty. Maybe Giratina didn't fall. Maybe it stood up. And the rest of creation just looked away. Porygon, Team Rocket's digital double agent. Porygon is the only Pokémon made entirely of code, yet you don't get it from a lab, a professor, or even a shady alley trade. You get it by gambling. At a casino. That just so happens to be run by Team Rocket. Officially, Porygon was created by the Sylph Corporation, a high-tech marvel from a respectable company. But there's a strange contradiction. Some Pokédex entries suggest it was actually developed at the Pokémon Lab on Cinnabar Island, a place with a reputation for experimental research. This conflicting backstory raises the question, was Porygon really a clean corporate project? Or was its creation a little more corrupted? This theory suggests that Team Rocket didn't just sell Porygon, they may have stolen it, repurposed it, or even had a hand in its development from the start. During their hostile takeover of the Sylph Corporation, Rocket agents had direct access to proprietary tech, and some of the company's scientists were said to have defected or been coerced. That makes Cinnabar's lab, a known center for risky genetic engineering, a likely place for follow-up experimentation. And what exactly is Porygon good at? According to the Pokédex, it's capable of traveling through cyberspace and has built-in copy protection. Those aren't standard battle features, they're tools for data infiltration, secure transmission, and digital manipulation. All things that would be highly useful to a criminal syndicate like Team Rocket. Its exclusivity as a Game Corner prize starts to look less like a coincidence and more like a distribution scheme. If you control the supply and the copy protection, you control access. In other words, Porygon isn't just rare, it's a monopoly. It might not be as flashy as Mewtwo, but Porygon could have been Rocket's ultimate stealth asset. A digital ghost designed to infiltrate networks and fund operations through high-stakes gambling. And yet, it sits quietly in your PC box, looking harmless. Maybe it really was just a flashy prize. Or maybe every Porygon is quietly watching, logging, transmitting, just as planned. In a world of psychic types and elemental beasts, sometimes the most dangerous Pokémon is the one with a built-in backdoor. Voltorb, the possessed Pokeball. Nobody warned you about. You know that feeling when a treasure chest turns out to be a monster? That's Voltorb, a Pokeball that explodes when you touch it. But here's the strange part. Nobody really knows where Voltorb came from. According to one theory, Voltorb isn't a designed species at all. It's a Pokeball that became self-aware. Or worse, possessed. Let's start with the obvious. Voltorb looks exactly like a Pokeball. Not kinda, not vaguely. It is a Pokeball, with eyes and a short fuse. Its name in Japanese, Biriridama, literally translates to buzzball. Its Pokédex entries are unusually cryptic. One says, "It is said to have been created when a Pokeball was exposed to a powerful pulse of energy." That's not a natural origin story. That's the start of a horror movie. There's even a running joke in-universe that people confuse Voltorb with regular Pokeballs and suffer the consequences. That's not something you'd expect from a biologically evolved creature. It's more like a design gone rogue, or an object that woke up. Here's where things get spooky. The theory suggests that a Pokeball, possibly a prototype or experimental model, was exposed to a surge of energy, maybe from an unstable electric type or a wild storm. Instead of frying the device, it imprinted something into it. Maybe the consciousness of a Pokémon, maybe raw electrical instinct. Whatever it wasn't supposed to happen. This would explain Voltorb's strange behavior. It doesn't evolve from anything. It has no clear gender. It doesn't eat, sleep, or even have limbs. It simply explodes when threatened, like a possessed object programmed for self-defense. Even Electrode, its evolution, is just a bigger, angrier ball. Some Pokédex entries imply that Electrode deliberately explodes for fun or to cause chaos. Sounds less like biology and more like malfunction. Then there's the Hisuian Voltorb, found in the ancient past. It's a wooden Pokeball, still alive, still electric, and still prone to self-destruction. This anomaly had been happening for a very long time. That version even has a hollowed-out expression, as if it's constantly grinning. Whether that's innocence or madness, we'll leave that up to you. Maybe Voltorb is just a strange Pokémon with an oddly familiar look. Or maybe it's a warning. Sometimes technology doesn't wait for permission to evolve. And when it does, it starts watching. Bulbasaur, the dual nature paradox nobody talks about. Bulbasaur is often seen as the most beginner-friendly starter. It's got cute looks, reliable stats, and a handy advantage against the first two gyms. But beneath that cheery exterior is one of the most quietly baffling designs in the entire Pokédex. Because Bulbasaur is two things that shouldn't coexist, an animal and a plant. According to the Pokédex, Bulbasaur is born with a seed on its back. As it grows, the seed blooms into a large plant. But here's the twist. It's not a symbiotic relationship. The plant isn't just attached to Bulbasaur, it's a part of it. Their life cycles are intertwined. When Bulbasaur evolves into Ivysaur and then into Venusaur, the plant doesn't just grow, it dictates the shape of its body. Its limbs adjust, its posture shifts. Eventually, Venusaur is practically hunched under the weight of a full blooming flower. So is Bulbasaur a plant-based animal? Or an animal-based plant? Or both? This theory explores the possibility that Bulbasaur's evolutionary line represents an ancient hybrid species, something that defies real-world biology. In nature, we have examples of plant-animal interactions, fungi that infect insects, sea slugs that absorb chloroplasts, even photosynthetic jellyfish. But nothing like this. Nothing where a mammalian creature and a blooming flower share a single genetic identity. What if Bulbasaur's line originated from a failed experiment in gene splicing? Or a long-lost region where nature simply works differently? One where flora and fauna aren't separate kingdoms, but one blended whole. The fact that Bulbasaur starts as the most docile and manageable of the starters makes this theory all the more eerie. It hides its strangeness in plain sight. And then there's the typing. Bulbasaur is the only starter with a dual type from the very beginning, grass and poison. Grass represents growth, healing, and natural power. Poison? Corruption? Decay? It's a subtle contradiction baked into its DNA. Maybe the plant and the animal parts aren't as harmonious as they seem. Maybe the reason Venusaur always looks a little miserable is because the two halves of its body are in quiet conflict, sustaining each other, but not quite at peace. Even the anime leans into this duality. Ash's Bulbasaur famously refuses to evolve. It doesn't want to change. Doesn't want to give in to the overwhelming influence of the plant growing on its back. That choice isn't just personal, it's symbolic. It's a creature resisting transformation into something it never chose to be. So while Charmander is the passionate flame and Squirtle is the adaptable wave, Bulbasaur is something more complex. A walking paradox. Half beast, half bloom. Balanced on the edge of natural harmony, and quiet inner conflict. It's easy to overlook, but that's the nature of contradictions. They tend to sit quietly until they bloom. Nurse Joy, an evolved Chansey in disguise? Everyone knows Nurse Joy. She's in every Pokémon Center, every region, always cheerful, always helpful, and always surrounded by identical cousins who look and sound exactly the same. For a long time, fans chalked it up to cartoon logic. Just a funny running gag. But what if it's not a joke? What if the identical Nurse Joys across the world aren't just family? They're all the same species. This theory suggests that Nurse Joy is, quite literally, an evolved Chansey. Let's break it down. Chansey is known for its healing powers. It carries an egg said to promote health. In the games and anime, Chansey and its evolution Blissey are the go-to Pokémon for medical care. They assist in Pokémon centers, they're beloved by Nurse Joy herself, and they're described as being drawn to people in need. Sound familiar? Now consider the visual design. Nurse Joy has the same pastel color scheme as Chansey, soft pink, white, red cross motifs. Her hairstyle even resembles the ear tufts of a Chansey. Coincidence? Maybe, but the parallels go deeper. Chansey evolves into Blissey with high friendship. But what if there's another path? A rarer, undocumented evolution, one triggered not by a leveling system, but by exposure to human society. A Chansey who spends enough time around people, enough time serving, helping, healing, becomes human, or at least something indistinguishable from human. The Pokémon world is no stranger to this kind of crossover. There are canonical examples of Pokémon turning into humans, and vice versa. Kadabra's Pokédex says it was once a boy. Yamask is literally a dead person turned ghost. In legends, Arceus, humans, and Pokémon are said to have once lived as the same species. The line is blurry. And evolution isn't always biological. It can be metaphysical. Now think about this. Chansey is extremely rare in the wild. Nurse Joy is everywhere. If Chansey are drawn to healing, and every Pokémon Center has a Nurse Joy, maybe Nurse Joy is the end state, the final evolution, a form so advanced, so integrated into human culture, that it looks completely human. That also explains their eerie uniformity. They're not clones, exactly, but they're all built from the same behavioral template: serve, heal, protect. Their smiles are practiced, their routines are identical, and they all work alongside Chansey, like a queen bee surrounded by workers, or maybe like a parent guiding their younger form. It would also explain why we never see a Nurse Joy outside of a medical context. Do they sleep, date, age? Or do they simply exist to run centers, powered by some deeper instinct or programming? Maybe the egg that Chansey carries isn't just healing, it's symbolic, a seed of potential, the next step in the evolution of care. So the next time you heal your team and thank Nurse Joy, take a closer look at her eyes. There might be more Pokémon behind that smile than you realized. Deoxys, Starmie's mutated cousin from space. Deoxys is a space virus. Starmie is a psychic sea star. And yet somehow they might be related. This theory suggests that Deoxys, an alien Pokémon born from a mutated virus, shares a strange origin with Starmie, one that blurs the line between sea life and cosmic mutation. For starters, both Pokémon have a prominent red gem at their core. They also share symmetrical geometric designs, a tendency to spin rapidly, and a weird psychic aura. Starmie's Pokédex says it emits mysterious radio signals into space. Deoxys comes from space. It's not hard to imagine a connection, especially if those signals Starmie sends were more than just noise. According to the theory, one of those signals could have triggered the virus that became Deoxys, or maybe it attracted something alien in the first place. Either way, the visual parallels suggest more than coincidence. Deoxys's defense form even resembles a simplified version of Starmie's silhouette. Maybe they're distant cousins, one born from Earth's oceans, the other from the void beyond. At the very least, if a starfish starts calling into the stars, maybe don't wait around to see who answers. Volcarona, the replacement sun, forgotten by time. Volcarona is a fiery moth, tucked away in a dusty corner of Unova. You don't encounter it in the story. It's not tied to a major cutscene. It's just there. But the Pokédex says something strange. It said that when the sun goes dark, Volcarona's flames can light the way. That's not flavor text, that's a legend. And according to this theory, it's not just metaphor, it's history. Let's rewind the clock. Unova, long before modern cities. An ancient time. The region is plunged into darkness, whether by volcanic ash, climate disaster, or the aftershock of some cosmic event. The sky is clouded, crops fail, life withers. And then, Volcarona rises. Unlike most bug types, Volcarona is powerful. It's the only bug type pseudo-legendary. It learns powerful fire moves. It radiates heat. It's revered in ruins. The relic castle where you find it is filled with sand and silence, a forgotten place of worship. This theory suggests that Volcarona wasn't just a powerful Pokémon, it was worshipped as a solar deity. Not a god of fire, but a literal substitute for the sun. When sunlight failed, Volcarona burned in its place. Its body became the light source. Its heat kept ecosystems alive. It saved a civilization. We see echoes of this in other Pokémon. Larvesta, Volcarona's pre-evolution, is said to be born from the sun. And the ruins where Volcarona sleeps aren't just old, they're sacred. Some fans speculate that Unova once had a religion centered around this insect, that the ruins were temples, that Volcarona's role was central before being erased by the rise of new powers, new myths, and new gods. The arrival of the Tau trio, Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem, may have pushed Volcarona into the background. Their cosmic-scale power redefined what legendary meant. Volcarona, despite its ancient role, was reduced to an optional encounter. A footnote. But the architecture still speaks. Relic Castle is deep, buried, and guarded. The encounter with Volcarona isn't random, it's ceremonial. You descend layer by layer into what feels like a tomb, and at the end, a single, sleeping flame. Some speculate that the sun didn't return naturally, that Volcarona burned itself out, keeping Unova alive. The one you find is a descendant, or a reincarnation. Its purpose fulfilled, but not forgotten. The strangest clue might be in the game design. Volcarona isn't a roaming legendary. It doesn't flee. It doesn't strike first. It waits, as if it's not there to challenge you, but to be remembered. So maybe Volcarona wasn't just an ancient protector. Maybe it was the sun, and maybe the reason it burns so brightly is because it remembers what the world looked like when no one else could see. The Hilbert-Nate possession theory, a hero spirit that wouldn't die. In Pokémon Black and White, you play as Hilbert, or Hilda, a young trainer who rises through the ranks, defeats Team Plasma, and faces off with N, the enigmatic boy raised by Pokémon to become their voice. By the end of the story, you disappear from the public eye. Your legacy ends quietly. But in Black 2 and White 2, 2 years later, a new trainer, Nate or Rosa, takes the stage. And yet, something feels off. The characters around you keep mistaking you for someone else. Hilbert's own mother confuses you for her missing child. N2 says he's been looking for Hilbert, but can't find him. You never meet your predecessor, they're simply gone. This theory suggests they're not gone at all. They've become you, not metaphorically, literally. The theory proposes that Nate is possessed, or reincarnated, by the spirit of Hilbert. That something happened after the events of Pokémon Black and White. That Hilbert died, or disappeared, or was consumed by the psychic trauma of confronting Ghetsis, Zekrom, and a collapsing worldview. And in that void, a new vessel was prepared. There are clues everywhere. Hilbert's legendary Pokémon, Zekrom or Reshiram, has vanished. The game never explains where it went. But later, N gives you his dragon. It's like the story is continuing from a broken point, one you're not supposed to notice. And why would N give a complete stranger one of the most powerful Pokémon in existence? Unless he recognizes something in you. There's also the tone. Pokémon Black and White are philosophical games. They ask hard questions about morality, about power, about the nature of truth and ideals. Hilbert isn't just a silent protagonist. He's a participant in a spiritual war. And maybe wars leave scars. What if something went wrong in the aftermath? What if Hilbert's confrontation with Getsis or Arceus or something else hidden fractured his soul? What if Nate isn't a new hero, but a second chance? A reset gifted Hilbert strength without his memories? Even the music reflects it. Nate's theme is a remixed echo of Hilbert's. His journey takes place in the same region, but with missing people, rearranged geography, and an undercurrent of unease. Team Plasma has splintered. N is quieter. Getsis is more dangerous. Everything feels like a sequel built on silence. Some fans take this further. They point out the unnerving idea that Nate's journey only begins because Hilbert's has ended. You never see both of them alive. You never resolve the disappearance. And yet the world keeps treating Nate like someone who's already been here. So what if the spirit of Unova's first hero never left? What if it found a new body, a new name, and a second shot? And what if Nate's story isn't a new beginning, but Hilbert's unfinished end? Mystery Dungeon: The Hidden Mythology of Human Pokémon. The Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games flip the entire franchise on its head. You're not a trainer, you're a Pokémon, but more than that, you used to be human. You wake up in a new body, in a world with no humans, and you're told you've been transformed. No explanation, no memory, just instincts and mystery. But this isn't just a gameplay gimmick, it's the tip of a mythological iceberg. This theory suggests that the Mystery Dungeon world isn't a parallel universe. It's the Pokémon world in the far future, or distant past. A version of reality where humans once existed, but something happened, and the only remnants left are those that became Pokémon. Let's look at the evidence. First, you're not the only one. In nearly every Mystery Dungeon game, there's mention of other humans being transformed. Some even remember fragments of their old life. The games treat it like a mystical occurrence, but it happens too often to be random. It's a pattern. Then there are the ruins. Throughout the series, ancient structures litter the world. Temples, towers, machines half buried in nature. There's a sense of lost civilization, of knowledge that once was. Some dungeons even have names like Old Relic, Temporal Tower, or Ruined City. Places that feel like they were once built for hands, not paws. And consider this, Pokémon in this world talk. They form towns, they raise families, they create guilds, banks, governments. The society you join is distinctly human, because maybe it was. This theory proposes that the Mystery Dungeon world is what remains after humanity merged with Pokémon. A cataclysmic event, a gradual evolution, or even an act of divine intervention could have caused it. Perhaps Arceus, or a force even older, decided that the only way to bring harmony was to unify species, to remove hierarchy, to make everyone equal. The result? A world where human souls now live in Pokémon bodies. And some, like the player, remember. Briefly. Faintly. Like dreams. The implications go further. Look at Dusknoir, a major character in the series. He understands concepts like death, time, and moral consequence at a level most mainline Pokémon never express. He doesn't just talk, he reasons. The same is true for Grovyle, Celebi, even the partner characters. These aren't animals, these are people, in new forms. And in every game, The final conflict isn't about battling trainers or winning leagues. It's about restoring balance, saving time, or preserving the world. Big human problems, the kind of problems ancient civilizations leave behind. Some fans speculate that the transformation from human to Pokémon isn't a punishment or accident. It's a rite, a passage, a form of reincarnation. The player is chosen not because they're special, but because they're ready. Ready to remember. Ready to carry what was lost into a world that forgot. So the next time you pick up a mystery dungeon game, don't ask, "Why am I a Pokémon?" Ask, "What part of me never stopped being human?" Parasect, the zombie in disguise. At first glance, Parasect is just another quirky bug grass type. A crab with a big mushroom. Harmless. But according to one of the darkest theories in Pokémon lore, this isn't a partnership, it's a hostile takeover. The theory suggests the insect we see is long gone, and the mushroom is fully in control. What we're looking at isn't a Pokémon, it's a zombie. Para starts out like many bug types, small, expressive eyes, mushroom sprouting on its back. But when it evolves into Parasect, everything changes. Its eyes go blank, white, emotionless. The mushroom takes over, growing massive and dominating the entire body. The insect's will, maybe even its life, is completely gone. This isn't just visual storytelling. It's backed by the Pokédex. Multiple entries across different generations explicitly state that the mushroom controls the Pokémon's movements. It absorbs all of the host's nutrients. One entry even states that if the mushroom is removed, Parasect stops moving entirely. That's not symbiosis, that's possession. The real-world inspiration is even more unsettling. The mushroom resembles a type of cordyceps fungus, a real parasitic organism that infects insects, takes over their nervous system, and controls their behavior before eventually killing them. It's known as the zombie fungus. In nature, these fungi hijack their host's body to serve the fungus's reproductive needs. That's exactly what Parasect's mushroom is doing. Some theorists believe the relationship might have started as mutualism. Perhaps ancient paras used the mushroom for defense. But over generations, the fungus mutated. It no longer protected the bug, it replaced it. Now, Parasect walks, battles, and interacts with the world entirely under fungal command. This raises disturbing implications. When a trainer catches a Parasect, who are they training? The insect that used to be? Or the mind of the mushroom? Are we cheering on a fungus dragging a lifeless husk into battle? And what does that say about the ethics of Pokémon training in general? Parasect isn't just a Pokémon with a quirky gimmick, it's a horror story, a biological tragedy hiding behind a cartoony design. It's a reminder that not every evolution is a step forward. Some are surrender. So the next time you see Parasect use Spore or drain health with Giga Drain, take a closer look at those blank eyes. Because nobody's home, and something else is driving. N's true nature more Zoroark than human? N is one of the most enigmatic characters in the Pokémon universe. He speaks to Pokémon, he understands them on a level no other human does. He questions the morality of training them. And according to this theory, there's a reason for that. N isn't human at all. He's a Zoroark, using illusion to walk among people, hiding his true form in plain sight. Let's start with what makes N so strange. He was raised in isolation by Gatesis, the villainous leader of Team Plasma. He can hear Pokémon voices. His empathy with them is immediate and intuitive. He doesn't just love Pokémon, he understands their feelings even without words. That's not normal. That's something else entirely. In Pokémon Black 2 and White 2, there's a memory link event. You follow a Zoroark into a flashback, only to realize the memory shown is from N's perspective. Fans jumped on this, arguing that the Zoroark wasn't just a companion. It was N, or at least a clue that N might be more illusion than human. Zoroark's entire gimmick is illusion. It can disguise itself as any other creature, human or Pokémon. It doesn't just mimic appearance, it can walk, talk, and act convincingly. So if one evolved Zoroark decided to live as a human, what would that look like? Maybe a mysterious green-haired man with no past, no birth records, and a father who calls him a freak. Speaking of Getsis, he outright says N has no human heart. That's a weird insult unless it's literal. Maybe Getsis found a wild Zorua, raised it and taught it to live like a human. Or maybe he found a child with Zoroark ancestry and manipulated him. Either way, he saw N as a tool, something to control. There are even design parallels. Zoroark has a black body with a bright red mane. N is the reverse, pale skin, green ponytail. A mirror. A clue. Maybe. Or maybe just coincidence. But the scratches on N's childhood room walls? Suspicious. No known Pokémon lived with him. So where did those claw marks come from? Still, there's no confirmation, no dramatic reveal. It's entirely possible N is just a gifted human, one raised among Pokémon who never learned how to be like other people. But if he is a Zoroark, that reframes his entire story. He didn't fight for Pokémon because he felt sorry for them. He fought for them because he is one of them. And when he lost, he didn't vanish in shame. He vanished because his illusion had run its course. So when you see N riding off into the clouds with the legendary dragon, remember, maybe it wasn't a farewell. Maybe it was a return to his real form. And maybe you never met N at all. Mimikyu's disguise, the ghost of a spurned Pichu or Dedenne. Mimikyu is one of the most tragic Pokémon ever designed. A ghost fairy type that hides under a crude Pikachu costume, it's officially described as lonely, desperate to be loved, and dangerously cursed. But according to this theory, its pain goes even deeper. Mimikyu isn't just wearing a disguise, it is what it's pretending to be. Or rather, what it used to be. A forgotten Pikachu clone. A ghost of something that never got its chance. The theory suggests Mimikyu is the spirit of a neglected Pikachu variant, like Pichu or Dedenne, or even Plusle or Minun, left unloved, unevolved, and eventually dead. It died craving the affection Pikachu receives by default. So now it haunts the world disguised as the one thing it always wanted to be. Let's start with the design. Mimikyu's costume isn't just similar to Pikachu, it's a handmade, ragged approximation. The eyes are scribbled on, the head slouches to the side. It's not a clever disguise, it's heartbreaking, the kind of mask a child might make out of desperation. Then there's the typing. Ghost Fairy. Ghost represents death, loss, and loneliness. Fairy represents innocence and longing. Combine the two, and you get something that died wishing it had been loved. According to the Pokédex, people who see Mimikyu's true form are cursed or even killed. But it doesn't want to hurt them. It just wants a friend. Some versions of the theory suggest it was a Pichu who died before it could evolve. Others think it was a Dedenne, another electric rodent designed in Pikachu's image, but never embraced by fans in the same way. There's even mechanical support. Mimikyu learned several electric-type moves like Thunderbolt, and its move pool is suspiciously similar to Pikachu's. Coincidence? Or muscle memory? It's worth noting that Mimikyu's lore is one of the few that fully leans into grief. It's not quirky or mischievous, it's lonely. Its entire identity is an act, and the act is killing it slowly. In the anime, Mimikyu actively hates Pikachu, not because Pikachu wronged it, but because it gets all the love Mimikyu never did. The idea that Mimikyu is the ghost of a forgotten Pikachu clone reframes its story completely. It's not just about wanting attention. It's about being erased, being replaced, being abandoned by a world that only has room for one electric mascot. So the next time you see that crooked costume, don't laugh. Look closer. There's something underneath that cloth, and it's still waiting for someone to love it back. Discarded items, remnants of fallen trainers. You're walking through a forest, a cave, or a wind-swept mountain path. And there it is, another item ball, a max revive, a TM, maybe a hyper potion. We pick them up without thinking. But this theory asks, who dropped it? According to one of the Pokémon world's darker fan theories, these items aren't just random rewards or forgetful trainer leftovers. They're all that remains of people who didn't make it. The fallen, the devoured, the ones who stepped into tall grass and never came back out. The theory is brutally simple. The Pokémon world is dangerous. Wild creatures with elemental powers roam freely. Children as young as 10 are sent on solo treks across untamed regions. Some of them are strong, some are lucky, but not all of them survive. The items scattered across caves and forests, they're not placed for your convenience. They're dropped where a trainer fell. Maybe they were attacked by a Gyarados near the water's edge. Maybe they wandered into a den of Ursaring. Maybe their Pokémon fainted and they didn't have time to run. Whatever the cause, their journey ended there, and their gear was left behind. Supporting this theory is the sheer number of items you find, often in the most remote, dangerous places. If they were just lost, why aren't they found near towns or routes with heavy foot traffic? And why are they always useful? Battle items, survival tools, and rare treasures. Because those were the supplies trainers needed most when things went wrong. There's even a moment in Pokémon Ultra Sun and Moon where you retrieve a Pokéball from a deceased Ether employee and deliver it to their granddaughter. It's treated as a somber moment. But what if that wasn't rare? What if it's just the only time anyone stopped to ask? The game world is full of graveyards, mourning NPCs, and ghost Pokémon tied to tragedy. Death isn't rare, it's just rarely acknowledged. And the item ball design? Maybe that's just a universal way the Pokémon world packages and recycles gear left behind. A sign of respect. A silent memorial. So the next time you find a full restore on the edge of a cliff, or a TM deep in a haunted cave, don't just pocket it. Spare a thought for who came before you, the ones who didn't make it, and hope you're not picking up something they meant to use in their final battle. Lavender Town Syndrome, the haunting melody. It starts with music, a high-pitched looping melody that echoes through the Game Boy speaker. Lavender Town, the resting place of Pokémon souls, is already eerie. But according to one of the Pokémon world's most infamous urban legends, The original theme didn't just sound creepy, it hurt people. Some say it even killed them. This is the Lavender Town Syndrome theory, the idea that the Japanese version of Pokémon Red and Green included binaural tones or high-frequency pitches in its Lavender Town music that affected children's brains. The legend claims this led to nausea, headaches, and, in the most extreme versions, death. It's a classic creepypasta, but what makes it terrifying is how grounded it feels. The story draws on a real event, the 1997 Pokémon Shock incident, where a flashing lights episode of the anime caused seizures in hundreds of viewers. That was real. It aired once. It sent kids to the hospital. And it proves that media, especially Pokémon, can have unintended harmful effects. Now back to Lavender Town. In the legend, kids who played the game complained of dizziness, nightmares. Some grew obsessed, others reportedly harmed themselves. The theory says the music was changed in later releases, an implicit cover-up. It points to fan analysis of the audio files, where certain tones were removed or shifted. There's no proof, of course, no medical reports, no official statement. But that's how urban legends work. They survive in the gaps. And this one thrives because Lavender Town already feels haunted. It's the only place in the early game centered on death. Ghosts, mourning. The tower isn't a battlefield. It's a grave. Even today the music is unnerving. The dissonant melody, the warbling tones. It doesn't sound like any other Pokémon theme. It doesn't want to. Lavender Town is where the game whispers, death is real, loss is real, and sometimes things linger. There's even fan art, bootleg cartridges, and alleged lost versions of the music passed around online. All of it feeding the myth. Lavender Town Syndrome isn't just a theory, it's folklore. A ghost story for the digital age. So no, there's no confirmed record of kids dying because of a Game Boy tune. But that song still plays, and deep down part of you wonders, what if they just stopped listening in time? Slowpoke's secret, omniscient sage or just dopey? Slowpoke is slow. That's the joke. It reacts 5 seconds too late, stares into space, and seems barely aware of its surroundings. But according to this theory, that dazed look isn't a sign of low intelligence. It's a symptom of something much deeper, omniscience. The theory goes like this: Slowpoke isn't dumb, it's overwhelmed, bombarded by the infinite knowledge of the universe at all times. Past, present, future, it sees it all. And the reason it seems vacant is because its mind is swimming in cosmic static. It's not that it's inattentive, it's that it's processing everything. That sounds like a stretch until you consider the evolution. When a Shelder clamps onto its tail, Slowpoke evolves into Slowbro, or if it bites its head, into Slowking. In either case, the transformation isn't just physical, it's mental. Slowking in particular is described as incredibly intelligent. It can speak, it can strategize, it's wise. The Pokédex even says it gains infinite intelligence from the Shelder's venom. But maybe that's not an upgrade. Maybe it's a filter. The theory suggests the Shelder acts like a pressure valve. It doesn't give Slowpoke more intelligence. It narrows the flood of awareness down to something usable. It silences the noise. Suddenly, the overwhelming blur of omniscience becomes focused. Thought becomes possible. And Slowpoke becomes Slowking. This puts a whole new spin on Slowpoke's behavior. It doesn't respond slowly because it's lazy. It's lagging because it's trying to align its cosmic sense of time with whatever dimension you're living in. When it finally reacts, it's not late. It's precise. There's even thematic support. Slowpoke is a psychic type, a category filled with creatures who read minds, bend time, and distort space. But unlike Hypno or Gardevoir, Slowpoke doesn't use those powers. It suffers from them. It's like a radio picking up every station at once, and no off switch. The Pokédex is littered with strange inconsistencies about Slowpoke, how it forgets pain, how it sits motionless for hours, how it takes days to notice injury. But maybe that's not a bug. Maybe it's enlightenment, the kind that breaks your mind rather than expands it. So maybe the bite of a Shelder doesn't grant genius, it grants focus. And for the first time in its life, Slowpoke hears one voice instead of 1,000. The result isn't a smarter Pokémon, it's a relieved one. Slowpoke may be the only Pokémon that knows everything. It just can't get a word in edgewise. Venonat and Butterfree, the swapped evolution theory. Butterfree and Venomoth, two classic Gen 1 bug types with no obvious connection, until you look closer. According to this long-standing fan theory, something went wrong during the original game's development. The theory suggests that Venonat was meant to evolve into Butterfree, and that the current evolution paths were accidentally swapped before release. Let's start with the evidence. Venonat and Butterfree share striking visual features. Both have round, fuzzy bodies, both have large, red, compound eyes, both have short antennae, both have small arms and feet. In contrast, Venomoth, the Pokémon Venonat actually evolves into, looks nothing like it. It has slender wings, a thin body, and different eyes altogether. Now flip to Caterpie and Metapod. Their body shapes and features arguably align better with Venomoth. Metapod's angular shell resembles Venomoth's segmented design more than it does Butterfree's soft, rounded wings. And Caterpie's yellow spots? They look more like the early sprite designs of Venomoth than anything on Butterfree. This theory gained popularity not just from fan art and sprite comparisons, but from an intuitive sense of fit. Butterfree feels like Venonat's next stage. Venomoth feels like Caterpie's. If the lines had been reversed, the designs would seem more consistent. And in game development, last-minute sprite swaps or evolution line adjustments aren't unheard of, especially in a game with over 100 original monsters. Of course, no official confirmation has ever surfaced, and many fans are content to accept the canonical lines as is. Butterfree's evolution from Metapod follows the classic butterfly metamorphosis. That's clean. That's symbolic. And maybe that's all the designers were aiming for. But the visual mismatches are hard to ignore. When you evolve a Venonat into a Venomoth, it feels abrupt, like the DNA didn't quite carry through, like something was meant to go another way. So maybe, in some early version of Kanto, things were different. Maybe Butterfree was once Venonat's destiny. Maybe Metapod was going to molt into something venomous and grey. And maybe someone, somewhere deep in Game Freak's archives, still has the original draft. Until then, we're left with a Butterfree that looks like a stranger in its own family tree, and a Venonat that's been evolving into the wrong future all along. Looker, the time-traveling detective. Looker is a fan-favorite character in the Pokémon series, an Interpol agent who appears in multiple regions, always in pursuit of shady organizations, always wearing the same trench coat and demeanor. But there's something strange about him. He never seems to age. He's always alone, and he frequently shows up where and when he shouldn't. This theory suggests Looker isn't just a persistent detective. He's a time traveler. Let's start with his first appearance. In Pokémon Platinum, Looker arrives in Sinnoh chasing Team Galactic. He doesn't seem to have a base of operations. He's simply there, tracking cosmic-scale threats, seemingly one step behind but always knowing just enough. Then he resurfaces in Black and White, and then Kalos, and then Alola, and then Galar, always appearing, never explaining. Most mysterious is his appearance in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. These games take place in a different timeline than the originals, and yet Looker appears again, washing up on a beach with amnesia. He has no memory of who he is or why he's there. The only clue: a shattered memory and a trench coat that somehow made the trip with him. Sound like someone who just slipped through time, or maybe through an ultra wormhole. Ultra wormholes were introduced in Generation 7 as portals connecting dimensions and timelines. People have fallen through too. Annabelle is another character who appears with amnesia and unexplained dimensional travel. She even joins Looker in Sun and Moon. Coincidence or shared origin? Then there's the fact that Looker always seems to know what's coming. He's aware of villainous teams before they strike. He arrives in regions just in time to investigate legends. He understands threats like Ultra Beasts and legendary Pokémon far better than he should. That's not just good detective work. That's foreknowledge. What if Looker isn't working from this timeline's files, but from future reports? What if his real mission isn't just investigating, but trying to prevent disasters that already happened elsewhere? Even his name is suggestive. Looker is someone who watches, an observer, a traveler. Maybe he's not Interpol at all. Maybe that's just the best cover story he could come up with after arriving in the past. His trench coat never changes. His age doesn't seem to shift. He has no known superiors. And every time he shows up, the stakes are bigger than anyone else realizes, until it's almost too late. So maybe he's not just a running gag or a narrative convenience. Maybe Looker's just trying to fix something. One region at a time. Genesect, the weaponized Kabutops theory. Genesect is one of the most unsettling mythical Pokémon in the franchise, a prehistoric creature resurrected by Team Plasma and enhanced with cybernetic weaponry. It's a metal-plated, disc-shaped horror with a cannon on its back and no clear expression. But one theory takes its horror even further. Genesect isn't just based on an ancient Pokémon. It is one. Specifically, Kabutops. Let's break it down. Both Pokémon are bipedal, insectoid in shape, and have sleek, bladed arms. They share similar hunched postures and sharp, curved heads. Kabutops is a fossil Pokémon, described in the Pokédex as a relentless predator that sheds its shell as it evolves. It's already ancient. It's already dangerous. It wouldn't take much to imagine a group like Team Plasma digging one up and thinking, what if we gave it a cannon? The official lore of Genesect confirms it was an ancient creature revived and modified by scientists, but they never say which creature. That ambiguity opens the door wide for speculation. And Kabutops is the most compelling candidate. The connection is thematic as well as visual. Kabutops was already a fast, ruthless killer. Genesect takes that and amplifies it. Its drive system allows it to switch cannon types, suggesting modular weaponry, a militarized evolution. Kabutops has scythes, Genesect has tech, nature, weaponized. This also matches Team Plasma's MO. They're obsessed with control power and reshaping the world's balance. They've tampered with dragons, cloned ancient monsters, and crossed ethical lines repeatedly. Taking a known fossil and using it as a template for the ultimate predator, that fits. Fans also point out that Genesect is unique among mythicals. It doesn't feel mythical. It feels engineered. Its personality isn't godlike or elusive. It's mechanical, programmed, cold. It acts less like a legendary being and more like a prototype, which makes sense. If its origin wasn't divine, but biological. If it didn't descend from the stars, but crawled out of rock and was handed a cannon. Even Genesect's typing, bug/steel, leans into this. Kabutops is rock-water, but its body was always more chitinous than rocky. Maybe the rock typing was just its ancient armor. Maybe Team Plasma stripped that away and reinforced it with metal. Bug for its predatory instincts, steel for the upgrades. There's no official statement from Game Freak confirming this, but there's no denial either. Just silence. And the more you compare the two, the more it feels like you're staring at the same Pokémon. One prehistoric, one postmodern. So maybe Genesect didn't rise from nothing. Maybe it crawled out of the past and got an upgrade it never asked for. Brock the Gorgon, a stony gaze and rock-solid alibi. Brock is known for many things, his flirtations, his cooking, and above all his perpetually closed eyes. It's a visual quirk that's become a punchline. But what if it's more than a design choice? This theory ventures far outside standard Pokémon canon, proposing that Brock is a Gorgon, akin to the mythological Medusa, whose open eyes would petrify anyone who met his gaze. According to this theory, Brock's affinity for rock-type Pokémon isn't a stylistic preference, it's a necessity. Stone Pokémon can't be turned to stone. His team choices are not a coincidence, but a coping mechanism. He surrounds himself with beings who are immune to his potential curse. The main evidence is Brock's eyes. They are always closed, and when they're opened, rare moments in the anime, they're often drawn for comedic effect, but never met with serious consequences. That could be intentional obfuscation. Within this theory, Brock is not simply squinting for effect. He's shielding the world from a power he can't control. His closed eyes become a symbol of restraint. His flirtatious behavior adds a tragic twist. What looks like romantic comedy is reinterpreted as a cry for connection. He desires companionship but must remain distant, afraid that intimacy could literally destroy someone. The fact that he never has a successful relationship might not be a joke. It might be deliberate self-sabotage, born of fear. Skeptics will point out that Brock's eyes are clearly an anime trope. Many characters across Japanese media have small or closed eyes to suggest personality traits, calmness, wisdom, or mischief. His use of rock types aligns with his role as Pewter City's gym leader, and there's no lore, dialogue, or hidden content in games or anime suggesting he turns anyone to stone. But the theory lingers because it offers a mythological twist on a beloved character. It transforms Brock from comic relief into a tragic guardian. It recasts his eyes as a curse, not a joke. His journey becomes not just a path toward becoming a Pokémon doctor, but a lifelong effort to protect others from the power within. Even if it's far-fetched, the Brock the Gorgon theory speaks to a powerful fan impulse, the desire to find hidden depth in familiar faces. It asks, what if Brock's real burden isn't heartbreak but restraint? And what if every time he squints, he's doing it to keep us safe? Team Rocket's eternal punishment, a purgatory of failure? Team Rocket, Jessie, James, and Meowth are icons of the Pokémon anime. Lovable losers, comic relief, and endlessly resilient. But this theory suggests their failures aren't funny. They're punishment. According to this chilling interpretation, Team Rocket isn't just unlucky. They're trapped in purgatory, doomed to endlessly relive a cycle of defeat as penance for an unspoken sin, permanently separating a trainer from their beloved Pikachu. The theory originates from a Reddit post speculating that the trio once caused the death or permanent loss of a Pikachu in real life. The story imagines that this trauma caused irreversible damage to its trainer, and the trio, racked with guilt, are now imprisoned in a cosmic loop, forced to endlessly foil themselves in a desperate attempt to set things right. Their lives revolve around one eternal goal: steal a Pikachu. But every attempt ends in failure, because failure is the punishment. This idea explains the structure of the anime in eerie new light. Ash never ages, Pikachu never evolves. Team Rocket appears in almost every episode, only to be defeated in the exact same way. Their catchphrases, their rocket-blasting exits, it's all ritual, a looping punishment, a self-contained purgatory. Even their personalities hint at more than slapstick. Jessie's desperation, James's sensitivity, Meowth's tragic backstory, all suggest people clinging to identity in the face of something they can't change. And while they gain powerful Pokémon and clever plans, something always stops them from winning, as if some cosmic force is ensuring they never succeed, as if they're sabotaging themselves. Unconsciously. There are moments when they show genuine kindness. They help Ash. They protect Pokémon. These flashes of redemption make sense if their purgatory is self-imposed. They're not evil. They're broken. They want to atone, but they don't know how. Skeptics will say this theory is far too dark for a children's show. And it is. The more likely explanation is narrative structure and comic tradition. Team Rocket is there to be funny, not tragic. Ash's agelessness is just a trope to keep the series evergreen. There's no mention of real-world consequences or any canonical guilt. But the theory persists because it adds a haunting layer of meaning. It reinterprets the repetitive structure of the anime as psychological torment. It turns cartoon physics into metaphysical weight. And it reframes Jessie, James, and Meowth not as fools, but as mourners, blasting off again, and again, and again. Not because they want to, because they must. Metagross and Ferrothorn, limbs of an ancient AI war machine, Project Ferro Mind. Metagross and Ferrothorn are two of the Pokémon world's most mechanically themed creatures, both metallic, both alien in their structure, and both disturbingly efficient. But what if their similarities aren't just thematic? This theory proposes that Metagross and Ferrothorn are fragments of a forgotten technological titan, components of a massive, artificial intelligence war machine known only as Project Ferromind. According to the theory, Metagross and Ferrothorn are not truly natural Pokémon. Metagross is already described as a supercomputer made from fused beldum. Its psychic capabilities suggest some form of sentient programming or mental network. Ferrothorn, on the other hand, is a grass steel type with a shell of iron, whip-like limbs, and a preference for clinging to ceilings like a lurking drone. It too is found in environments that feel more like abandoned reactors than ecosystems. The theory argues these Pokémon are remnants of a war-era defense network created by an ancient, ultra-advanced civilization, perhaps from another dimension like the Ultra Beasts, or from a forgotten era of technological dominance. Project Ferromind was the code name for a distributed AI designed to defend the planet. Over time, its components fragmented, some losing sentience, others evolving feral survival instincts. Metagross would be the command node, a thinking brain with strategic capacity. Ferrothorn the mobility or containment limb, a hard-shelled weapon meant to clamp down on threats or secure corridors. Their resemblance isn't visual only, both have radial symmetry, orb-like cores, and shared typing. Both are in the mineral egg group. Both resist psychic and poison, possibly a holdover from their synthetic immune systems. One variant of the theory suggests that Rotom, the plasma Pokémon, was once the pilot of these machines, a kind of biosynthetic spirit capable of jumping between chassis. Its ability to control appliances would be a vestigial trait from its original function, powering and controlling large mechanical entities like Metagross class or Ferrothorn class drones. Others speculate that Ferroseed is seeded inside dormant Metagross bodies, drawing iron and code from their defunct frames to become Ferrothorn. The visual overlap in their core design supports this idea, especially when imagining the remains of broken machines overgrown with vines. Skeptics argue this theory is a fan-made mythos stretched across design coincidence. Metagross is clearly an artificial fusion created through Pokémon evolution mechanics, while Ferrothorn is a natural predator with organic tendencies. Their different habitats, origins, and lack of in-game lore linking them make the connection tenuous. And Rotom, while strange, has always been depicted as a playful entity rather than a war-born AI. Still, the theory lingers. It reinterprets familiar designs as legacy technology. It weaves Metagross, Ferrothorn, and Rotom into an ancient cybernetic ecology, forgotten relics of a planet that once needed defending. Or perhaps one that still does. Because if Project Ferromind is trying to rebuild itself, it may already be waking up. The splash misunderstanding, a hop, skip, and a jump to confusion. Splash. It's one of the most infamous moves in Pokémon history, synonymous with doing absolutely nothing. Magikarp flops. The screen says, "But nothing happened." And yet, despite its uselessness, the move persists across generations, used by Pokémon who have nothing to do with water. Why? According to this theory, it's all a mistake, a mistranslation, a single linguistic slip that snowballed into decades of confusion. In Japanese, the move is called haneru, which more accurately translates to hop or jump. When Magikarp was the only user in Generation 1, localizing the move as splash made sense. A fish flopping on land appears to be splashing. But as more Pokémon gained access to the move, Spoink, Buneri, Hoppip, it became less and less logical. Why are rabbits and balloon plants splashing? The answer is simple. They're not. They're hopping. Had Haneru been translated as hop or bounce, the move's type, animation, and effect, or lack thereof, would make more sense. A Pokémon that hops in place, accomplishing nothing, fits the spirit of the move, and applies to a wide range of land-based creatures. Instead, The water-centric word splash stuck. And now we're left with a non-water-type move, performed by non-aquatic Pokémon that has nothing to do with liquid. Even its classification as a normal-type move fits better with the generic hop action. Its water-style animation in some games could just as easily represent movement, energy, or even effort. Not literal splashing, but the visuals reinforced the mistranslation, cementing the confusion. This theory doesn't rely on deep lore or mechanical reinterpretation. It's a rare case of a real-world translation decision echoing throughout the franchise. The move has become iconic, almost beloved, for its pointlessness. But the humor may stem from a misunderstanding that never got corrected. To be fair, Splash's uselessness is part of the joke. Magikarp is supposed to be pathetic. But for Pokémon like Spoink and Hoppip, the move's name creates unintentional absurdity. They're not aquatic, they're not even moist. Skeptics might argue that Splash is a fun, harmless quirk. And they're not wrong. But the linguistic evidence behind Haneru is strong. It's not a matter of fan speculation, it's basic Japanese. The move's intended effect was jump up and down and achieve nothing. Somewhere along the line, that got wet. The theory lingers because it's simple, plausible, and easy to miss. It's a small oversight with massive ripple effects. And it reminds us that even in a fantasy world of fire-breathing dragons and electric mice, words still matter. So the next time your Buniri uses splash and flops like a fish, just remember, it was supposed to hop. But nothing happened. Hannibal the Hypno, a creepypasta exploration of predatory grief. Hypno has always been one of the creepiest Pokémon in the franchise. It hypnotizes children, it leads them away, it feeds on dreams. The Pokédex doesn't hide its unsettling nature. But this fan-made theory goes even darker. It centers on a specific creepypasta, the legend of Hannibal the Hypno, a uniquely malevolent version of the Pokémon twisted by grief, fear, and something worse. According to the story, Hannibal wasn't born evil. He was the product of an experiment, a hypno used in research into fear and trauma, studied by a shadowy organization called the OBLIVARIS. But something went wrong. He evolved, not biologically but psychologically. His pendulum cracked, his hands grew long and thin, and he stopped eating dreams and started feeding on identities. Hannibal's victims were grieving children, especially those mourning lost mothers. He lured them with a familiar sound, the cry of a Cubone. The story plays on the lore that Cubone wears the skull of its mother, drawing in children who feel the same loss. When they followed the sound, they didn't find comfort. They found Hannibal. But Hannibal doesn't kill. He replaces. He walks into dreams, slowly rewriting the memories of his victims until they forget who they are. Survivors are left hollow, muttering about masks, drawing skulls, staring into mirrors without recognition. They don't remember the encounter. They don't even remember themselves. In the story, Hannibal eventually escapes or is released. He leaves behind an empty Pokeball with a shattered pendulum inside, a trail of half-lost children, and the Cubone's cry, still echoing. Some versions of the story suggest Hannibal wasn't the only one. That Hypno has a potential for darkness no one has yet fully explored. That the Oblivious Labs scattered their failed projects across the globe. Hannibal was just the first to wake up. Of course, this is pure fiction. Hannibal the Hypno is not canon. The OBLIVARIS organization doesn't exist in any game, but the creepypasta draws power from real lore. Hypno does lead children away. Kubones is associated with parental death. And Lavender Town is home to stories of loss and ghosts. The theory lingers because it takes existing unease and spins it into horror. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to feel possible. It taps into primal fears of grief, identity loss, and the comforter who turns out to be the monster. So if you ever hear a Cubone crying in the woods, think twice before you follow, because Hannibal doesn't want your dreams. He wants your name. Pokémon Go, Niantic's covert global geospatial AI training operation. It started with catching a Pikachu in your driveway, then a Snorlax downtown. But according to this theory, Pokémon Go isn't just a game. It's a massive, coordinated data-gathering operation designed to train powerful geospatial artificial intelligence systems. And the players? Unpaid surveyors of the real world. The theory hinges on something Niantic publicly admits. They're building a large geospatial model. Every Pokestop scan, every gym interaction, every AR capture feeds this system. When you spin a stop or scan a location, you're uploading camera and location data, street signs, storefronts, angles, lighting. And Niantic, the theory claims, isn't just mapping the world. It's preparing to understand it. Imagine needing visual data of a rarely photographed alleyway. Just make it a Pokestop. Suddenly, hundreds of players flood the area, phones out, scanning walls and corners. Pokémon Go becomes a gamified reconnaissance tool. Players think they're collecting stardust, but they're feeding an algorithm. The game's success supports the idea. With millions of users worldwide, it offers real-time foot traffic to virtually any location. The theory suggests this data isn't just used for gameplay, but to train AI that can identify locations, track movement patterns, and even see the world through the eyes of thousands of phones. Some theorists go further. They speculate this model could be used for autonomous robots, surveillance drones, or AR infrastructure, systems that need high-resolution, constantly updated maps of the physical world. The phrase, "If it's free, you're the product," echoes here. Pokémon Go may be fun, but every throw, every catch, every scan is another data point in a growing neural map. To Niantic's credit, this isn't hidden. Their privacy policies and blog posts describe their visual positioning system, VPS project. They even encourage users to submit scans voluntarily. But the theory questions the ethics of turning millions of players, many of them children, into unpaid contributors to an AI project whose goals they don't fully understand. Skeptics argue this is all above board. The data is anonymized. Participation is optional. And Niantic's ambitions, AR navigation, enhanced game features, are benign. There's no sinister intent, just cutting-edge tech development. But the theory lingers because it taps into real, growing concerns about privacy, data ownership, and how our actions in seemingly innocent apps can fuel much bigger systems. Pokémon Go isn't scary, but the infrastructure it builds, that might be. So the next time you're asked to scan a Pokestop or photograph a gym, ask yourself, are you playing a game or training a machine? The Regis, golems of ancient ages, Kabbalistic lore, and Tooth echoes. At first glance, the legendary titans, Regirock, Regisi, Registeel, Regieleki, Regidrago, and Regigigas, are simply elemental golems, They guard ruins, they speak in dots, and they wait to be awakened. But this theory suggests they are far more than ancient Pokémon. They are symbols, echoes of human history, mythological archetypes, and possibly real-world trauma. Let's start with the golem connection. In Jewish folklore, a golem is a clay figure brought to life through ritual, often as a protector of a people or a place. The Regis, created by Regigigas, embody this idea. They are artificial, constructed from raw material, stone, ice, steel, and sealed away in chambers with instructions written in Braille, the language of touch. To awaken them, one must complete trials, walk patterns, bring offerings. It's not catching, it's ritual. But here's where the theory goes further. According to some fans, each Regi represents a different historical epoch. Regirock as the Stone Age, Regisei as the Ice Age, Registeel as the Iron Age, Regieleki as the Electric Age, and Regidrago as a lost mythic age. Regigigas, their creator, represents the force that moved continents, history itself. This symbolic progression mirrors human technological development. Regieleki's electric typing makes sense in an era of digital revolution. Regidrago, stitched together from lost dragon lore, could represent forgotten mythologies, powers of imagination or destruction erased by modern rationalism. But the theory doesn't stop there. A darker interpretation links the Regis to World War II. The Hoenn region, home to the original 3 Regis, is modeled after Kyushu, Japan, one of the areas devastated during the war. Some fans suggest that the locations of the Regis correspond with cities affected by bombings, the fact that Registeel is sealed in a tomb of metal. Regis sleeps in eternal isolation. Regirock waits beneath the earth. The silence, the Braille, the ruins, they feel like memorials. Even the sealing of the Regis is significant. In the Golem of Prague myth, the golem was sealed away once it became too powerful. Similarly, the Regis are not celebrated. They're contained, bound by ancient orders, as if waking them risks awakening something the world isn't ready to face again. Skeptics argue the parallels to World War II are a reach. Game Freak has never confirmed such inspiration. The age theory is compelling, but there are no direct Pokédex entries or lore that connect these Pokémon to specific time periods. The Braille puzzles, while unique, are more likely a creative accessibility nod than a coded tribute to wartime loss. Still, the theory lingers, because the Regis don't just feel ancient, they feel heavy. Their music, their chambers, the silence around them, they feel like locked doors to forgotten pain. And whether they're allegories for human epochs, cultural myths, or the unspeakable weight of war, they were sealed away for a reason. And waking them never feels like triumph. It feels like remembering. Cubone the Predator, the Kangaskhan hunter and tribal skull tradition. Cubone is one of the most iconic tragic Pokémon. It wears the skull of its deceased mother, cries at night, and evolves into the hardened, battle-ready Marowak. But what if its backstory isn't one of grief, but one of tradition? This theory flips the narrative. Cubone isn't a mourning orphan. It's a hunter. And the skull it wears isn't from its mother. It's a trophy. The theory proposes that Cubone and Marowak belong to tribal communities that hunt Kangaskhan, not out of malice, but as a rite of passage. The skull is not a symbol of loss. It's a ceremonial headdress passed down through generations. When a Marowak dies, its child inherits the skull, not because the parent perished in tragedy, but because that's how legacy works in their culture. Evidence? Let's start with the move Bone Merang. It's a signature attack for Kubone and Marowak, and its real-world analogue, the boomerang, was historically used by hunters to take down kangaroos. Kangaskhan's resemblance to a kangaroo isn't just physical, it may link them ecologically or narratively. Kubone is small, fierce, and bone-wielding. Kangaskhan is large, protective, and maternal. Predator and prey, tradition and defiance. This interpretation also solves a persistent logistical issue in the original lore. If every Kubone wears the skull of its mother, how are they breeding? Why don't we see a dwindling species? The tribal tradition theory reframes it. Not every Marowak dies giving birth. The skull is ceremonial, not maternal, and that tradition ensures a constant supply without self-extinction. The idea of tribal markings could also explain regional variants. Alolan Marowak, with its fire-dancing ghostly flair, may represent a spiritual evolution of this tradition, a version that honors ancestors with fire rather than bone alone. It isn't about revenge, it's about remembrance. Skeptics will rightly point out that nearly every Pokédex entry describes Kubone's sadness and the maternal link. It's baked into its identity. The anime reinforces this with poignant stories of loss. There's no official support for tribal hunts or ceremonial headdresses, and the idea of Kubones preying on Kangaskhan in a literal sense may stretch believability given their size and disposition. But the theory lingers because it reshapes Kubone's story from personal tragedy to cultural narrative. It elevates the skull from a symbol of mourning to a symbol of lineage. It imagines a Marowak culture where bones are sacred, not because of who died, but because of what they represent. Legacy, victory, survival. Maybe Kubone isn't crying for its mother, maybe it's chanting, remembering, carrying on the old ways, with a bone in hand and a story written in skull. Tangela, the drowned spirit wrapped in vines. Tangela has always been one of the more visually enigmatic Pokémon. A bundle of blue vines with red feet and hidden eyes, its appearance invites mystery. But according to a haunting theory popular among Japanese fan communities, Tangela may be more than just a peculiar grass type. It might be a spirit, a child who drowned and was transformed into something vegetal and eternal. The theory begins with geography. In Pokémon Red, Green, and Blue, Tangela is found on Route 21, a coastal stretch south of Pallet Town. It's the only location in Kanto where wild Tangela can be encountered, and it's right next to the sea. Japanese fans have long connected this detail with an eerie origin story. A young child, possibly a girl, drowned nearby. Her body was never recovered. Instead, the vines of the surrounding seaweed and undergrowth twisted around her, physically and spiritually, until she was reborn as Tangela. It's not just the location that fuels the theory. Tangela's design adds weight. Early Pokédex entries describe its body as entirely obscured by vines. Its vines are so tangled that the true form beneath is hidden. The red feet, otherwise unexplained, are often interpreted in this theory as a child's boots, clothing that remained even after transformation. Tangela's height, 1.0 meters, and weight, 35 kilograms, are within the range of a small, waterlogged child. It's a chilling recontextualization of what seems like quirky design. The vines aren't just a defense mechanism, They're what trapped the child. And now, they're what define her. Japanese folklore is rich with tales of water spirits and drowned souls. Funayure are ghosts of those who perished at sea, doomed to haunt the waters and drag others to a similar fate. The concept of spirits transformed by grief or nature into trees, vines, or beasts is also common. Tangela, in this reading, becomes a liminal being, neither fully plant nor person, bound to the world by the trauma of death near water. The theory also fits within a broader Pokémon tradition of tragic origins. Many ghost types are canonically spirits of the dead. Tangela, though not a ghost type, could be seen as a botanical parallel, a grass type born from the same sorrowful energy. The infinitely extending vines mentioned in some Pokédex entries could even represent a metaphoric entrapment, an eternity of being tangled, unable to return to what once was. Skeptics will point out that the theory rests on circumstantial evidence. Tangela has no official law tying it to human death. Its presence on a sea-adjacent route might be coincidence. But the theory persists in part because of how well it slots into cultural archetypes, especially in Japan, where water is often seen as a boundary between life and death, and where transformation through tragedy is a recurring narrative motif. So perhaps Tangela isn't just a mass of vines. Perhaps it's a child who never left the water, and every step it takes on Route 21 is just one more attempt to find its way back. Human origin Pokémon, lost souls in living forms. Not every Pokémon was born in the wild. Some, according to both official entries and fan interpretation, used to be human, or still are, in some spectral or spiritual sense. This theory weaves together several Pokémon whose Pokédex entries hint at, or outright declare, a former life as people. Chief among them, Kadabra, Gengar, and Sork. Let's begin with Kadabra, known as Yungara in Japan. Unlike most theories, this one doesn't require speculation. It comes directly from the Pokédex. In Pokémon Red and Green, the entry reads, "One morning, a boy with extrasensory powers awoke in bed transformed into a Yungara." It's a jarring sentence, and an unusually specific one. It doesn't describe an ancient myth or a one-time event. It presents a transformation happening now, without ceremony. A boy became a Pokémon. The implications are chilling. Every Kadabra could be the result of this metamorphosis. A child with psychic abilities cursed to live out the rest of their life as something else, retaining power perhaps, but losing identity. In Japanese fan discussions, this isn't treated as metaphor, it's taken seriously. Kadabra isn't just inspired by psychics, it is one, or rather was. Then there's Gengar. In Western fandom, it's often rumored to be Clefable's shadow, a ghostly counterpart formed from shared silhouette and typing. But in Pokémon Moon, the Pokédex goes further. It's said that Gengar once was human. It tries to create a companion by taking the life of another. Here, Gengar isn't just haunting people, it's trying to replace them. That motivation, born of loneliness, of wanting others to join it in the afterlife, suggests a tragic origin, someone who died alone, became a ghost, and now longs for company in the worst possible way. Gengar's grinning form becomes a mask, hiding not mischief, but sorrow. Its presence in dark places, its habit of trailing trainers, and its affinity for shadows all read differently when you imagine a former human behind the smile. It's not stalking, it's seeking. Finally, Sork, or more historically Hitmonlee, brings a martial edge to the theory. Multiple entries state that the soul of a pro boxer possesses it. One Pokédex notes, "The spirit of a world champion boxer inhabits its body." Unlike Kadabra and Gengar, this isn't a transformation. It's a possession. A human soul, bound by unfinished ambition, animating a body that can fulfill it. Here, the boundary blurs between Pokémon as species and as vessels. Sork isn't just fighting, it's chasing a dream from a previous life. It battles not to win, but to continue. The idea that a ghost could inhabit a Pokémon like a borrowed body reshapes our understanding of both. Who owns that punch? The creature? Or the boxer behind its eyes? Taken together, these examples paint a darker portrait of the Pokémon world. It's not just home to magical beasts, it's a place where human essence can persist, mutate, or re-emerge. A place where death isn't final, and identity can be rewritten by grief, power, or fate. Skeptics may say these are just colorful entries in an in-game encyclopedia, but to fans attuned to the horror between the lines, these Pokémon aren't just strange. They're survivors of something deeply wrong, so the next time you face a Kadabra, a Gengar, or a Sork, look closely. You might not be battling a monster. You might be battling someone who remembers being you. Erika's hidden role, Celadon's gym leader, or Team Rocket's silent ally. Erika is the picture of tranquility. As the gym leader of Celadon City, she's known as the nature-loving princess, tending to grass types with elegance and grace. Her gym is a greenhouse, her demeanor serene, her team botanical. But among Japanese fan communities, there's a theory that recasts her role entirely. Erika isn't just ignoring Team Rocket's presence in her city. She's working with them. At the heart of this theory lies geography. In the original Pokémon Red, Green, and Blue, Celadon City isn't just home to Erika's gym. It also houses Team Rocket's primary Kanto headquarters, hidden beneath the game corner. This isn't a rumor, it's canon. The most notorious criminal syndicate in the region operates in plain sight, steps away from the gym. And Erika, a powerful local figure with strong ties to the community, does absolutely nothing. To some, this is simply a narrative oversight. But for others, especially those drawn to the Japanese concept of URA, the hidden side behind appearances, Erika's passivity is a red flag. She isn't oblivious, she's complicit. Her Pokémon team also raises eyebrows. Many of her grass types are dual poison types, Gloom, Victreebel, Vileplume. These are the same kinds of Pokémon frequently used by Team Rocket grunts. It could be chalked up to type synergy. But it could also be read as a subtle alignment, a shared affinity, not just mechanically, but ideologically. More fringe interpretations go further. Erika's gym is staffed exclusively by women. Some Japanese theorists draw cultural parallels between this and the traditional yukaku, red light districts, implying that Celadon Gym, or even Erika herself, could be part of Team Rocket's deeper infrastructure of manipulation and control. It's speculative, even outlandish, but in a world where criminal networks hide under casinos, the idea isn't completely out of place. Another thread ties Erika to rare Pokémon available at the game corner, like Dratini and Porygon. These Pokémon are supposedly scarce and valuable, yet she may have access to them. Coincidence? Or evidence that she's more connected to rocket operations than she lets on? Of course, There's no explicit dialogue, no confession, no scene where Erika swaps her kimono for a rocket uniform. Skeptics will say her silence is just a product of early game design, and they're likely right. But to those drawn to hidden lore, Erika's serenity becomes suspect. Her calm becomes calculated. Why doesn't she confront the organization beneath her city? Why do her Pokémon resemble rocket choices? Why does she seem so unaffected by the chaos so close to home? Maybe it's because she's not looking the other way. Maybe she's guarding the garden so the weeds can grow. Red the Ghost, a silent champion on sacred ground. He stands at the summit of Mount Silver, silent, alone, facing away, and when you defeat him, he vanishes. Red, the original Pokémon protagonist, becomes your final opponent in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, a legendary wordless trainer who seems more myth than man. But according to one enduring theory, you don't battle the living Red at all. You battle his ghost. The theory centers on the eerie circumstances of the encounter. Mount Silver is dark, remote, and deadly, reachable only by the strongest trainers. You need 8 Johto badges, the Kanto champion title, and passage through several high-level zones just to reach it. It's not just a mountain, it's a pilgrimage, and at the top is Red, alone, unmoving, and, most notably, silent. He says nothing before the battle, nothing after. And when you defeat him, he doesn't walk away. He fades out, like a memory, like a spirit. In Japanese fan communities, this isn't treated as an aesthetic choice. It's treated as a clue. Red's disappearance upon defeat is interpreted as a vanishing act, not just from the battle but from the world of the living. The theory deepens when players realize that Red's team, especially in Gold and Silver, includes no Pokémon capable of learning Flash. Yet he's made it to the summit of Mount Silver, a cave that normally requires illumination. How did he get there? The answer, some propose, is simple. Ghosts don't need light. His choice of team also feels symbolic. Pikachu, the first partner, the 3 original Kanto starters, a Snorlax, guardian of roads, an Espeon, silent, psychic, distant. It reads like a personal pantheon, not a competitive team. A life remembered, not optimized. The ghost theory also leans on narrative logic. Red is a living legend, but no one in the game seems to know where he is. You're never told explicitly that he's alive. He's spoken of in past tense. And the setting, a cold, towering mountain where time seems to stop, feels less like a location and more like a memorial. Skeptics will point to Red's later appearances, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Sun, Moon, and Masters, as proof he's alive. In those games he speaks barely, battles, and even appears in modern clothing. But fans of the ghost theory respond with a twist, perhaps the Red on Mount. Silver was a ghost, and later appearances are either retcons or encounters with someone else entirely. Or maybe Mount Silver is a liminal space. Maybe Red isn't dead, but what you see there is his essence, his spirit, the part of him forever frozen at the peak of his journey. Because Red doesn't just fade from the screen, he fades like someone who was never supposed to be seen again. So when you reach the summit, and the wind howls around you, and the music fades into snow, maybe you're not facing a champion. Maybe you're paying your respects. Digimon are corrupted Pokémon files glitched into existence. What if Digimon aren't rivals to Pokémon, but rejects, not a separate species, not a parallel franchise, but something far stranger, the digital ghosts of Pokémon that were lost, deleted, or malformed during storage? According to one of the more elaborate crossover fan theories, Digimon are corrupted Pokémon files, and the digital world is just a quarantined sandbox for all the monsters the system couldn't process. The theory begins in the PC, literally. In the Pokémon games, stored Pokémon are digitized and transferred into a vast, unseen database. Most players imagine this as a benign cloud of boxed creatures. But what happens when a file gets corrupted? When a release command goes wrong? When bad data sneaks in through a cable link or emulator? According to Reddit user U-Reithgvazun, that's when a Pokémon stops being a Pokémon and becomes a Digimon. The evidence, while tongue-in-cheek, starts to stack up. Digimon names follow a pattern: Agumon, Gabumon, Tentomon. Now imagine those are corrupted Pokémon nicknames. Agumon? That's Agu.mon, a Pokémon nicknamed Agu, with a file extension indicating it's a .monster file. Every Digimon species name becomes a corrupted file name left behind in the server trash. Missing No, the legendary glitch Pokémon of Generation 1, is cited as the prototype. A data fragment that escaped deletion, made its way back into the playable world, and manifested as a semi-formed monster. According to this theory, Digimon are what happens when the missing No's aren't caught. They fall through the cracks and land in a malformed mirror realm where evolution is unstable and rules don't apply. Even the behavior of Digimon supports this. Unlike Pokémon, Digimon evolve non-linearly. They can regress, split, mutate, or warp depending on experience or circumstance, like unstable software rewriting itself. Their designs are jagged, technological, and chaotic. They look like data that's trying and failing to resolve. The digital world, then, isn't a separate dimension. It's the system quarantine, a place where corrupted Pokémon files are sent to keep them from infecting stable data. A digital purgatory of rejected code. Redditors embraced the absurdity. One user, u/Lordsmish, joked that Missing No was a Digimon trying to rage against the machine and re-enter the Pokémon world. Another imagined Pokémon with glitchy nicknames giving rise to entire Digimon species. The pun-loving U the Dutchin summed it up. It's kind of far-fetched. And isn't that the point? Of course, this theory falls apart under even gentle scrutiny. Pokémon and Digimon are separate franchises with different origins, different creators, and no canonical crossover. But that doesn't matter. The theory thrives not on logic, but on glitch logic, the kind that lets you walk through walls with a certain item setup, or catch a level 100 Raiden by surfing next to a statue. The beauty of this theory is that it treats corrupted data as mythology, that every released Pokémon might still be alive, somewhere, spinning into an armored dragon with a USB tail. So the next time you release a Rattata or store a Pikachu, think twice. You might not be deleting them, you might be digivolving them. In a world built on data and dreams, where Pokédex entries whisper contradictions and haunted ruins pulse with unanswered questions, it's no surprise that Pokémon inspires so many strange and wonderful theories. From the vines that hide a child's ghost, to glitch-born monsters who escape the confines of corrupted PCs, to gym leaders with secrets buried deeper than their roots. Every corner of this universe invites speculation. Some of these theories are unsettling, some are poetic, Some are outright absurd. But all of them share something powerful. They treat the Pokémon world as more than a game. They imagine it as a place where myth and memory, biology and belief, code and soul all tangle together. And maybe that's the secret to why these ideas stick. They don't just explain a mystery. They remind us that behind every sprite and battle screen, there's room for story, for folklore, for fear, for wonder. So whether you're battling Red's ghost on a frozen peak, wondering if that Tangela is watching you with a child's eyes, or trying to remember whether you really released that Pokémon into the wild, just remember, somewhere, in the space between save files and silence, the theories live. And they're not going anywhere.